need to. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast, the show for women in the boutique fitness and wellness industry who are ready to build businesses that don't just survive, but thrive. I'm your host, Christa Gurka, and today's episode is for those of you who still feel stuck in the weeds. You're managing the schedule, handling front desk drama, juggling a million little fires, and wondering, why does this business feel so damn heavy? Well, here's the thing. You're acting as the operator when you should really be acting as the owner. And there is a huge, and I mean huge, identity shift that actually needs to happen for your studio to truly grow beyond just you so that you can truly feel free. What we're talking about in this episode is what it really means to step out of the day-to-day operator mode and start thinking and acting like the strategic leader your business needs and that you deserve to be. So if you've ever thought, I built this, but it's still totally 100% dependent on me, this episode is exactly for you. I'm going to walk you through the hidden identity crisis no one talks about, the signs that you're still stuck in doer mode, and the practices that can help you finally make the shift into true leadership and ownership. And if this resonates, I've got something waiting for you on the other side. Yep, my FitBiz monthly membership, where we do this for women. We help other women like you build teams that are accountable, set boundaries that people keep, and scale sustainable businesses that actually run without them. So let's dive into today's episode. What really happens when we start a business is most often, not always, but most often, we start the business because we're the technicians. We are the Pilates instructor. We are the yoga instructor. We are the physical therapist. We are the acupuncturist. And so we usually work for someone else. And then, if you've ever read the book, The E-Myth, he calls it an entrepreneurial seizure. And then basically, we're like, oh, I could do this myself better, work for myself, have freedom, make the decisions. But what actually happens is we go into this thing having this wonderful skill set of how to be the technician and a really poor skill set of how to actually be an owner. And so we end up being the technician and then we become the operator and we sit in this operator mode often for a long time. It could be years, decades even, right? And what we do is we are like, well, we hired people but we're still doing everything. Why? Because one, either we don't trust them wholeheartedly, we're afraid to give up control, we don't know how to train somebody, we're uncomfortable holding people accountable things to things. And so having those difficult and challenging conversations. But every studio owner hits this point at some part or business owner. And if you haven't been there yet, you're going to get there at some point where you realize like you're not just the instructor anymore, the therapist or the clinician, but you don't truly feel like you're like the owner or the leader because you still feel so tied down to the business. And how this internal conflict usually shows up is through burnout, resentment, and hesitation to hire or to delegate. Or you just start thinking like, woe is me, nobody can do it as good as I can. And I invite you to kind of think on those things. And is that really what's happening? Or is that just what you're rationalizing to yourself? Because we as owners have not taken the right steps, set up the right systems, and created the right structure so that the new way of doing business can actually thrive. Okay. So what are some signs that you're still acting as the operator? Well, if you're still making every single decision in the business, you're definitely still acting as operator and you're not leveled up into that like leader CEO role. Are you still managing the class schedule, the therapist schedule, dealing with front desk issues, answering the phones, answering emails? Are you avoiding looking at your financial data and sitting and doing strategic thinking? Are you constantly in service delivery and not really in strategy and vision and mission and growth? So oftentimes we get distracted by these little things because in order to really move from operator to owner, a lot of personal development and shifts have to happen, as well as really building out a very sustainable structure and system in your business. Okay. And so there's usually three phases of business ownership in our types of business and service providers. Where the owners are usually the technicians. So usually when we start the business as a baby business, we're the service provider. We are we provide the service, we get the money. So that's usually how we start. And then we're like, well, we want to grow this thing beyond ourselves. And so we start to hire people. And so at that time, usually we become like possibly service provider, but maybe we start stepping out of this service a little bit, but we end up sitting in operating mode. And this is where many of us get stuck. One, because we don't know how to get to that next level that is owner. Okay. And how to create a business that we own, right? Rather than running a business that runs us. And so this is where we mostly get stuck because there's a lot that has to happen. One, we have to learn to let go of control, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to send out your kids into the world after you've raised them in your home for 18 years. It's hard to give up and relinquish some control of something that you birthed into the universe, and you're wondering if people will handle it the right way. People are going to do the right thing. And if you want that to happen, it totally can. You just have to create those systems. You have to create those systems. You have to create those processes. You have to tell people if they're doing the right job and the wrong job. And that is a lot of work initially for us. It's a very heavy lift. And so oftentimes we don't want to do that heavy lift. So we avoid that hard to stay with this hard, which is like living in this operator role. Okay. So, what are some of the things that I really encourage for you to start acting like an owner? And how does that look different from being an operator? Well, owners don't just solve problems. Okay. Owners are not the ones that are solving the problems. They build the systems so that the same problems don't keep happening over and over. That's the difference between an owner and an operator. So an operator usually works on the defensive and they're always reactive, whereas owners start to act on the offensive and they set up systems so that the same problems don't keep coming up again and again, and other people run the systems. Owners delegate outcome, not just tasks. So rather than saying, okay, you go make this copy, you would say, all right, you are accountable for the full win back strategy of or client retention strategy. So this other person should be accountable for all of the tasks, setting the strategy, completing the tasks. And if there are people that are accountable to them, that's the order that it should go in. And so oftentimes what I see happen, and I say this because I did it myself, is let's say we want to hire a manager. So then we're like, oh, this person's a great instructor. Let's make them manager. And then we have to train them to be a manager. No, we should hire someone that has managerial skill sets. So we're not training them to be a manager. We're not training them to hold people accountable. We're not training them to operate the systems. We're just training them to operate our systems and learn our systems and our ethos and our core values, right? But we're not training them to be managers. And this is where a lot of the disconnect starts to happen. So we then become part of the problem. And it's in how we hire and in the way that we maybe just abdicate our responsibility in training people and onboarding them the right way. Okay. Owners make time to think and then have other people execute and implement their thoughts. So one of the things that really helped me move into this role, and one of the things I really encourage the owners that I speak with is to start to work out weekly CEO blocks. Okay. I also recommend doing monthly or quarterly CEO days. Ideally, maybe in the long run, it can be a week. And so what I used to do, I started with one day. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take one day where I'm not seeing clients. I'm not in the studio. I'm just focusing on what I would call like clarity breaks. So I could really lean into where are we going? How do I want to get there? Who is going to be accountable for this? So it just started with days. Then one day became 2 days a week. Then I went to 3 back-to-back days a month. Then I went to 1 week a quarter where I would actually go away and I would go somewhere local, but I would stay like in a hotel or an Airbnb so I could really focus on really talking about what is my mission and vision for this next quarter, for this next half year, for this next year, what initiatives. I would review the data and I would look at where do we want to go and what is the best way for me to get there. And then what roadblocks might be in the way. Also, build a leadership team, even if it's just one right-hand person. And that person must be a full-time employee. I see people trying to do this with part-time people, and no matter how good they are, a part-time person will never be able to give everything that they want to your full-time needs. You want this person to be the one to meet the AC repairman at the studio, to meet the plumber, to call the plumber when the toilet breaks, to talk to the electrician. And someone part-time is not going to be the one that's going to be able to do that. You really need a full-time person. Now, they don't need to be full-time necessarily in the studio, but they need to be available full-time so that if they need to meet the contractor or have meetings with the team or meet the air conditioning plan, even if they weren't planning on being in the studio or the office or the clinic that day, they can go and meet there and they're the ones setting up the meetings, not drawing you into those day-to-day tasks. Make sure you're reviewing your finances monthly. We do this in the inner circle with everyone in the inner circle. I look at their finances and we all also have a group finance call where we're looking at their finances monthly. They're having a monthly scorecard so they can track how they're doing. Okay. Data drives decisions and decisions makes dollars. You cannot improve what you do not measure. And then the last thing I would say is I really, really think it's important to have a sounding board, have a mentorship group, a peer group, a mastermind, something where you can be around like-minded individuals that are going through the same thing, that have the same questions, the same challenges, the same wins, a support system. That's not your friends, that's not your spouse, unless your spouse is in business with you. Okay. It's changed the trajectory of my business being in a mastermind, the boutique fitness mastermind that I was in, was where I was actually introduced to the fact that I could sell my business. I didn't even know that was available to me. And I was able to successfully walk away with 7 figures when I sold my business. It's really being in the room where the conversations are different was what allowed me to see that that was even achievable. Why is it important that you have other people to help you through this process? And asking for help is because you are too close to your business to see the problem. Like it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? Or that like something about the goldfish that doesn't even know he's in water kind of thing. And so because I've been there, I can see around the corners for people. I know what's coming down the pipeline. And I can help you prepare for that because of my own previous experience. It's it's really, again, we are sometimes too emotionally close to the situation and we sometimes end up making decisions out of emotion, okay, rather than data. And so the mindset that's required for the shift is really impossible to cultivate in isolation, I believe, because it's also about getting true with yourself, getting true with how you react to things, why you react to things a certain way, why we make mountains out of molehills, right? How can we set up situations and systems so that everyone is rowing in the same direction all the time with the same mission and vision in mind? being in a room with other like-minded individuals, specifically in our mentorship programs where it's all women who have done this exact same thing or are currently working on it, accelerates your growth. The same way working with a physical therapist accelerates your rehab protocol. Working in a private setting in Pilates studio accelerates your performance in a group class. Working with any type of coach accelerates your growth to be able to accomplish whatever goal it is you're thinking of. Okay. So I really want you to recognize if you are still operating in operator mode and if you really are doing this out of fear for leveling up or doing it as a distraction, kind of because you don't want to really do the hard work that is required to step from operator in to owner. One of the reasons this topic is so near and dear to my heart is because I was an operator in my business for a long time. At the beginning, out of necessity. And then at the end, towards the end, just because I kind of was a control freak and I was like, nobody can do it as good as me. I'm the best. This is my baby. I can't let anyone. I wasn't letting people make mistakes, which made them not try, which made them not innovate. And I had created a system, I had done it with a bunch of little task rabbits where I had to have my thumbprint on everything. So what I created was a system where I did more than I led, where I did more than I delegated. And you just can't scale when one person is in charge of everything. It's impossible. And so I was in this like micromanaging mode because I felt like that was a way to hold on to control and keep things, in the way that I like to use them. And then it wasn't until I joined a business mentorship program where I was taught that really I needed to learn to let go of the vine. I needed to learn to let people help me. And then I also needed to learn how to hire people for the skill sets that I did not possess. And that's when I really started learning, like, how can I hire marketing professionals? How, not just a bunch of task rabbits, how can I hire um, directors of operations to take over the day-to-day tasks? Because what I really wanted to sit in was the high level vision. And I really wanted to be out of the day-to-day. Forget about just teaching and treating patients. I didn't want people to come to me when the toilet broke. I didn't want people to come to me when the AC broke. I didn't want people to come to me with their vacation requests. I really wanted to start being a seven-figure CEO, and to become that person, I really needed to start thinking and acting like a seven-figure CEO. And I started saying, well, would a seven-figure CEO be the one opening the mail every day? Would a seven-figure CEO be the one that's doing the class schedule? And then I started really putting people, to be honest, that were better than me in those roles and getting them to hold others accountable. It also helped me create a buffer between myself and the whole team, right? So it would, instead of 18 people coming to me with things, I had one person coming to me with everything. And it was then and there that really allowed Pilates in the Grove to start growing. And that's when I could really see the trajectory of what this business could be without relying on me for every single thing. It is a very, very freeing feeling. It is 100% doable. And it's just a matter of following certain frameworks and roadmaps to get you there and recognizing what your goal is, what the finish line is, and understanding that it's going to take some time to do that. Um, it's not just like, oh, we're going to do this, snap your fingers tomorrow. I was listening to a podcast the other day and somebody was talking about culture, which I'm a big believer in. And they were talking about how Chick-fil-A was changing its culture from saying thank you to my pleasure, which I love, and we love to use my pleasure and Pilates and Grove all the time. But they were saying that it took them over 2 years to make that change. And all it was was saying, instead of saying thank you, saying my pleasure. And so it doesn't happen overnight. These kind of personal and professional development takes time, could take a year, could take 2 years, could take 3 years. But if your eye is on the prize and you just know every little decision I'm making is going to get me to that prize, then you're able to move in the same direction and also articulating that to your team so everyone knows why we're making certain decisions and being able to pull yourself out of the day-to-day operations of the business so that you can see and sit in the highest level seat possible. And it is 100% profitable. It is profitable to do it, but it's 100% possible. I did it. I know other businesses, I've helped other businesses do it, and it is completely available to you if you're willing to do the work to get you there. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're feeling like you're caught in the middle, like no longer just an instructor, but not really a CEO, you're not broken. You're just in the messy middle. And this is where it feels really, really hard. And if you're interested in accessing a peer group, my FitBiz monthly membership is where I work with women just like you to help you stop managing and start leading with systems, with confidence, and with an actual sustainable strategic plan. You don't have to do this alone. We're here for you. Come sit at the table with us. There's plenty of room at this table, and we'd love to have you. You can learn more by visiting www.christagurka.com/fitbizfoundations to learn all about our monthly membership. It's only $99 a month. It's less than the cost of a PT session or a Pilates session. $99 a month, and the value is at least over $1,000 a month. All right. So check out christagurka.com/fitbizfoundations. And until next time, my friends, bye for now.